Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. Today, I'm continuing with the chapter 4 of Humans of Westknits, where you get to meet some of the knitters who are going to participate in this year's Mystery Knit Along by Stephen West called Twists and Turns. Well, okay, so tell me how you discovered Stephen West for yourself.
If I had to look back, my guess it was watching other YouTubers. Of course, I'd seen his books, his patterns. I was not as experienced knitter at that point, but I just kept hearing people say he walks you through it step by step. So I think three years ago when he did Slipstravaganza was my first. And I took all of his Zooms or whatever he was offering at the time, learned to do the lazy swatch, learned to put your colors together. And that's how I came up with the colors for Slipstravaganza, stuff that was in my stash mostly. And then just trying to fill in a few colors. I loved every minute of that knit. I love learning new things. Probably comes from being a teacher, of course, but I'm thinking, I don't know if I ever would have done any of those techniques, put those together, and then to see it grow week by week. Now, I try to stay up every week when the clues come out. I can usually do pretty good till the very last one. If it was intense like this one, with this huge border, I think that did take me more than a week. So I enjoy it. I never think of it as, am I good enough or will I be able to do it? Because his videos walk you through every single step.
Well, your sister and you have this podcast on YouTube called Frivolous and Frugal.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to this year's yarn choices? Are you going the frivolous way or the frugal way?
Oh, I am 100% team frivolous. And my sister is not. So she will not even do a mystery knit. That's not in her. But yeah, I'm going with Lobby Anime. So there was a kit that Steven showed on his first video that I happen to have the two colors in my stash. So I don't know if you want to see them.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, is that purple just amazing?
I love the good purple. But there is it has to be super deep and super rich, but just this is beautiful.
Look at those jewel tones. And then, of course, my pop of color will have to be an outrageous pink. So,
that's going to be spectacular. I'm actually excited to see that, as you knit it.
Right, yeah.
Well, when you wear the shawls by Stephen West, is that showstopper? People stop you on the street and ask, what is it? And
I think it is. I think it becomes wearable art in a way. Now, the other thing is I drape them over my chairs and my couches too, because they look very good that way.
So how is that cat of yours reacting to that?
My cat likes cashmere, which can be a problem.
So that's one of my cats loves truffle cheese and cashmere. And I found her on the street when she was 2 days old. So she's the street cat, basically, that I had to feed through the dropper because she couldn't even suckle on the bottle. And she has the most distinguished taste out there.
That's funny. Ours is a farm cat too. And she likes alpaca at times too, but really she's destroyed a few skeins of cashmere.
Well, is there any ideas? Have you been thinking about what techniques can Stephen throw at us this time with twists and turns?
Well, I'm pretty sure it'll be cables, like everybody's talking about with the cable needle. I think I saw somebody else mention they wondered if it was going to be maybe 2-color cables.
So have you done those?
I've not done 2-color cables before. How about you?
Me neither.
Oh, that'll be interesting. I don't know. Will it be the turns part? Will we be doing short rows of some sort to kind of get the shape of the shawl, to change a little bit? I have been miserable in my success of trying to guess what he's doing.
I'm very unpredictable.
Well, if you think of shawlography, those, I don't know if mine's handy, those little corkscrews, that he did. Now, these are my true colors. I tend to do a lot in red, black, white, but these, I have never even thought of those before. So to watch those come, and then, I don't know, there's just something brilliant. I think he will eventually, do you think, do a sweater with that yoke?
That would be so pretty.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm not a garment knitter per se, but I just like his ability, and maybe the teacher in me looks at the teacher in him, and he takes very potentially complicated techniques and simplifies them, and then gives you the wiggle room to do what you want, or, you know, change accordingly. So that's a pretty confident teacher to be able to do both of those at the same time.
Well, when you think about it now, right, this knit along in comparison to the first one that you've done, do you think you came to the point of your life where you can experiment and change stuff around with his shawls? So
yeah, so interesting. I'm on Team Kit, by the way. So I tend to buy kits. But like this one, I was just knitting along. There was no black in the kit. I just knew at one point I needed a splash of black. When I did this first one, I never would have changed anything. I would have done it exactly as he wrote it. I would have stuck to the straight and narrow and not ventured off. But I think as you become more confident, you just feel like you just know when it's time to change, or you need that extra pop of color. Now, I've never taken the mohair dare. How about you?
well, I haven't even done a single mystery knit along so far. So this is going to be my very first. I've knitted a bunch of his shawls, but they were never as part of the mystery knit along because I'm such an impatient person that mystery is killing me. So it's going to be very interesting to see how I can pace myself this year.
Oh, that will be interesting. And then to just trust the process. You know, it's like, you know, follow
I have less problem with trusting the process because I love everything he creates. Like, I think he's the modern genius of the design, and it's always something interesting and it's always looks spectacular. So I haven't met yet a shawl or a garment that he created that I didn't love. So I trust the process. It's not that. It's that I want this process to be done in 1 week and not in a month.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's interesting because there are some weeks that you'll get done very early in the week,
Right.
and then you just have to wait for the next one to come out.
Well,
So.
you see, that's the difference between Martin and I. So Martin has, we're not going to mention how many work in progress. So he can, like, you know, once he's done with the clue, he can just go and finally finish that sweater that he promised his husband years ago, right? I usually like knit one thing at a time. And if I'm really into that thing, I'll knit it all the time. So
Yeah,
see how that goes.
my sister's monogamous in her knitting, so that will be a challenge for you,
right?
To wait and hold. So,
do you think, like, when you're looking at Steven's YouTube channel as a podcaster, do you think he inspires you to try different things in your own podcast?
definitely, I think the ability just to relax enough to let the conversation just travel. And so I get to podcast with my sister so we can banter back and forth. You have a more of a challenge where sometimes it's just you. I just think he has no boundaries. And there's some freedom in that where I have no trouble trying things. And if I don't like them, we go ahead and say that. So I know I always worry sometimes if I have the perfect Instagram knitting life where everything is just polished. That is just not who we are. And so I think he too will say, you know, just make it work, relax, don't stress. And that helps me to relax, not stress, and just let it go. So I don't know how you deal with that.
Well, like, it's a work in progress for sure. Talking of whips, that's my work in progress. I find it very easy when I interview other people. You know, I have the person across the screen that I'm talking to, but when it's me against that camera, I don't know how people do that. Like, it's nerve-wracking for me as well.
And I wonder for Stephen if the fact that the dogs are right there helps.
So you are a student.
Yes.
When do you have time to, like, do the knit along?
Like before classes, during classes, after classes, like in between. So I'm a university student, so I have like a bit of a flexible schedule. Sometimes I just have like 2 hours of classes. Sometimes I have 10 hours. Sometimes I have like to go to the lab and do things. So definitely around that, I just fit it around. When I find time, I'm probably knitting.
Well, I mean, what attracts you to Stephen West designs in particular?
The play with colors, because I have just like my standard colors that I really like to use, and he like gets me out of my comfort zone. Try something else, just a color pop, or maybe a mohair there or something. So yeah, that really just makes it work for me.
Tell me like your sort of fiber journey, if you will. Like when did you learn how to knit?
When I was around 6 years old, I learned to crochet and then knitting, and yeah, all around that from my grandma. And yeah, it took like a couple of years, and then when I was 11, I got just a kit to crochet an amigurumi fish, and that's really got me started. And then when I found Ravelry and knitting podcasts, it just bloomed. Like I was around 16 then, and it was for me really cool to knit my own sweater or a top or something. So yeah, I took off around then, and now I can, if I can think I can make it, I will definitely do it.
Well, I mean, how are your friends reacting to that? Like, do they question why you're knitting instead of partying or doing whatever the young people do nowadays?
Yeah, most of them, they just find it like really cool now, definitely, that I can like knit color work or just like a sweater that you can buy in store or socks. They find it really cool. Like in the beginning, they were like, nah, it's a bit weird, and like it maybe had some mistakes and some holes in it, but was like, okay, I just want to wear it. But now they're more impressed, and they just don't understand when I find the time to knit. But
well, the first time you did the mystery knit along, it was last year?
yeah, last year, correct.
So how did you like it? Did you like the whole mystery part of it?
Yeah, definitely, because I sometimes find it hard to choose like which color to put where, and I chose my colors in the beginning. I'm not gonna change it and just go for it and see, yeah, what's this mystery knit along brings me, and yeah.
Well, what's your hope for this one? Like, what do you think is going to be different? How do you imagine that?
I just think because it's only 3 colors that you have really like a lot of color play, and like not just like in between like the two main colors, you could say, like the ones you need the most of, like you really get those 2 colors that really play together. And I just hope that there is a lot of contrast in it, and just maybe some color work or something that I think that will be really cool.
So are you team kit or team stash?
I'm team kit. I bought myself a kit from Stephen and Penelope, but like I think it's the alpaca autumn one. It's like it's like more orange and a yellow or something, like just some autumn colors that I thought would really look nice, and a bit out of my comfort zone, but like not completely, that I know I can wear it with like a lot of things, but it's not something that I have already.
Right. So you have your own podcast on YouTube. You are my fellow YouTuber.
Yeah, I do.
You'll be talking about Mystery Knit Along in your YouTube channel?
Yes, I haven't talked about it yet because I want to wait until I have the kit, and I just finished filming an episode a couple of hours earlier to this, so I just like wanted to wait because I had a lot of finished objects and didn't want to just like go bang bang. Yeah, the mystery knit along. I'll be working on it, and definitely once October is there, it will be like my main project. So then I will be talking about it a lot. So yeah.
Well, what attracts you to collaboration between me and Martin? Like, how did you find us, and why did you decide to join us?
Yeah, like in the beginning, like last year around this time, I found Martin's channel, and I just like binged all his episodes because he was just like, he's just a normal guy and he's knitting, and it's just like different. And also like he crochets like the amigurumi, like the animals from Toft, and I really like those as well. So it was just something different. And then I found your channel through different people that you interviewed, and they were like, I have an interview with Irina, and yeah, now I follow you as well. And then when you were like, I already bought my kit, and you're like, yeah, we're collaborating for the MKAL. I was like, okay, I'll join them. And I have other people because like around me, nobody's really doing it. My parents don't really get it. And it's just like, yeah, I'm doing this. Okay, good for you if you're happy. So it was like, yeah, let me do this and learn, get to know some more people.
So like if you're going on the street in your town, right? Have you ever met anybody wearing Stephen West shawls?
No, I don't think. I haven't seen, like, I maybe have, like, when I went to a yarn store, seen one or two, but on the streets here, no, definitely not.
So like when you're gonna finish your shawl, are you wearing it?
Definitely. Definitely one or two times if it's like not my thing, but I love the color, so I'm thinking, yeah, I'll just wear it. Like the one from last year, it was just like my winter shawl, or the like from when it was finished until like February, I just wore it almost every day.
So how did your friend react to that shawl? Were they like super envious that you have something so unique and that you made it?
Yeah, like I had one friend that was really looking at it like, how did you do this? Like the brioche part and like these crisscrosses, like how can you just
Right.
like, you sit there with some sticks and string and you just make this? I'm like, yeah, it just works. And I find it really nice like that.
It's magic. That's what we do.
It is.
We
They're
create
like,
magic
we
with
see
sticks and
you
string.
have a ball of yarn with some knitting needles in it, and then 2 days later we see when you have like a pair of socks or a sweater. I'm like, yeah, that's what I do.
Well, I mean, the thing that I find very inspirational about you, you are bioscience engineering student, so you're busy with your studies, right? You're only 20 years old, so you could have haven't been like knitting all that long, basically. And if you can do it, there is a chance that a lot of people can probably also do it. And I find it like very inspiring for other people who like sitting on the side bench and thinking, well, should I join? Shouldn't I join? I find your enthusiasm about it like very inspiring. What would be your advice? Like if people thinking about it, but they're not sure if they on the level or if they have enough experience or if it's something for them, what would be your advice?
I think if you're like ready to learn some new stitches, just go for it. Because like last year I had never knitted brioche. Like I didn't know how to do that. I was a bit scared of it, but I was like, Stephen will hold my hand, just watch the video, try it, and like if you're not sure about the section, put in a lifeline and be okay to frog something, to start again. Like you tried it, it didn't completely work out, but try it again and just learn on the way. And if there's a small mistake, just fudge it. Like if somebody is really looking that close to your knitting and seeing that one small mistake, I think they're too close to you. And yeah, it just like in the whole bigger picture, you shouldn't see it, and just be proud of what you're making, even if there is a small mistake in it.
So you sat on the plane with Elizabeth Kramer and you didn't even know who she was?
I haven't a clue. Maybe I'll send an email one day to apologize, because I was going on and on about how it takes me about 6 months to finish a pair of socks. But she just looked at me, no, I knit a sweater in like no time at all. And I thought, okay, well, good for you. But she was very kind. She said if I have time, I should go to this cute or great yarn store in Amsterdam, Stephen and Penelope. I hadn't a clue, but I studied the map and I ran there as soon as the plane landed. And whoa, since then it's just been collecting yarn and knitting.
So have you heard of Stephen West prior to that visit?
Never before. I think even visiting the store, I didn't really know. And then afterwards I saw on Instagram who he was and what he's doing. Yeah.
So like, okay, like when you first, do you remember when you first saw who he was, right? And what he was doing? What was your impression? Like, was it crazy? Was it something just your cup of tea? What did you think?
It was definitely crazy because of the colors and all the designs mixed into one shawl, for example. It's something that I'd like to make, but I'm not sure if I'm ever going to wear it. But then when I did the first MKAL in 2020, Slip Stravaganza, I did it all in greens and grays, and that's just my kind of color. So I wore that shawl, I think, every day for almost 6 months straight. So yeah, I need more shawls. I need more Westknits.
So you are an attorney, right?
Yes, conveyancer. So not the fighting kind, the property transfer kind.
But like when you come to work wearing Stephen West shawl, like do people ask?
They do. They look at it because I wear it every day. They say, "Oh, wow, did you make that?" And they'd look at it and say, "Oh, yeah, my grand can knit." And someone told me today, "Oh, I see you quite busy with the knitting on Instagram." I said, "Yeah, I love it." And she's, "No, I just knit squares." And then my mom makes dog blankets. So there's still, they notice it, but there's not a lot of knitting going on here in Polokwane.
Well, how did you learn how to knit?
At school, we learned, when I went to school in the 80s, it was a school subject. In the third year of school, you had to knit a little doll's dress, just to knit stitches and increases and decreases. That's where I learned initially. So
you're sitting next to Elizabeth Kramer, telling her about how like it's problematic for you to knit a pair of socks, and then you're jumping into the mystery knit along. What was that experience like?
It's wild, because for me, there's no way. I listen to you and you say you wait until all the clues are released and you knit the shawl in a week. Oh, no way. I push myself to finish the clue in the week it's released. Otherwise, I know there's no way I'll finish that shawl. It's difficult, but I put the YouTube on half the speed and I watch him carefully, and then you get it done. Yeah, it's possible. Well, do you think you became like a different kind of knitter after your first mystery knit along? Yes, yeah, certainly. I'm not afraid of trying new things. This year, if there's brioche, I'll definitely give it a go. The previous time I skipped it. But it's one stitch at a time. And even if it's very complicated or difficult, just, I think, take it one step at a time, watch a video and try it. So you in South Africa, how is the choice of yarn? I've heard, like I was talking to Sita, and she was telling me that there's like tons of merino and tons of mohair. Like, did you decide to go with the local dyer? Yes, I did. It's merino and it's dyed by this previous one was Heartland. This year it's Big Fox yarns, incredible colors. I can show you. It's after Professor Pearl. I'm worried there's not enough contrast here, but I think it will be all right with a color pop. And yeah, it's wonderful to have it available here in South Africa, because if we buy something from the US or from Europe, it's at least double the price because we have to pay the import duties and the shipping is quite crazy. Right. Well, plus the waiting on it like probably takes a while. Yeah, it does take a week, 2 weeks at the minimum. Yeah, but yeah, locally there are so many independent dyers, and yeah, we spoiled for choice for sure. And well, the price today to one of the dyers who participated in preparing kits for this year, Mystery Knit Along, Layla from the Urban Pearl, and she said that some of the kits have very low contrast. They don't have this high contrast, and she still thinks it's gonna look good. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I hope so, because I love these colors. Yeah, it's the nice browns and a bit of green. And if not, yeah, we'll just over dye it to make a neutral one color shawl. Well, do you think like 1 year you'll go wild and do some like electric pink or something? I'm not sure the hot pinks. I bought hot pink to use with Slipstravaganza, but I didn't. And I think if the dyer watches, she'll be disappointed, because my puppy is wearing a lovely Blueface Leicester hot pink sweater, because it's just too pink. I don't think it would suit me. I like blues, grays, browns, and greens. Well, what excites you the most about this year collaboration between Martin and I? Oh, it's just adding another layer to the fun of the MKAL. Usually I'd be counting the days until the MKAL starts on the 6th or during October, but this year it feels like it's a carnival atmosphere a month prior to it, because I'm now, through your podcast, I learned about Martin and I watched all his previous podcasts of the previous MKAL, so I've pre-washed my yarn, considered, worried about bleeding of colors, and it did bleed a little. And it's just learning so many new people and ideas, and it opens up a whole new world. Because I think in Limpopo, I'm the only one knitting the shawls. I know there are quite a few in the other provinces, especially Western Cape and Gauteng, but everyone is so far away, so it's got to be online. Well, you know what my favorite part about meeting somebody, when I was a little kid, there was the poem about Limpopo, and finally I meet somebody who lives there. So to me, this is mind-boggling. Yes, yeah, that's a favorite. No, it's just, it feels like a party, and it's all the excitement, seeing everyone's color choices and where they get the yarn, how they change their mind 2 days before it starts, things like that. I like it.
Well, is there anything that you are nervous about this year's MKAL? Like, is there any technique that scares you, or something, the unknown of it, that terrifies you?
Well, the cables, I'm worried he's going to start in the center and then do some intricate cabling going out, and a very odd shaped shawl. I'm not sure what we're going to get. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm worried it's going to be like an octopus shape, starting from the center going out. That might be interesting, but I'll do it for sure. I'll wear it as well.
Well, I mean, when you look at Stephen West's designs in general, do you think he can come up with something that you're just gonna hate?
I don't think hate is a strong word, but for example, the eyeball sweater, it's not a favorite. I won't knit it. I hope it's not like that. All the other shawls I like. I think Color Craving was the odd shaped triangular one. That's not a favorite. It'll be last on the list of the ankles that I want to catch up, because I want to knit all of them. But no, I think just the eyeball is not a favorite, but maybe with different colors it can work.
Well, if somebody is hesitant to join us, what would be your advice?
Don't be. Even I'm a beginner knitter, and the videos, the tutorials that he does on YouTube is just what you need to get it done, and get it done in time. So you don't even have to be fast. I'm not fast either, but it's really so much fun to sit and wait for the clue, watch through the video, and then start your knitting.
Well, I don't know if I'm buying into that whole waiting for the clue fun kind of theory. I don't know. I'll have to pace myself somehow. But I'm very excited to see what you guys gonna need this year, and we're gonna share the notes. We're gonna compare the progress and see these colors.
The brioche, we'll need hand holding. We'll need cheering on.
Brioche and I are good friends, so like no worries. I'll help out. Tell me like how you decided to dye that yarn for this shawl. Was it difficult to decide on colors? Because it's like I have hard enough time through my stash and picking up
was
colors.
a little bit difficult because I had too many ideas.
Well, that makes it difficult, right?
Yes, it's very difficult because I have always a lot of ideas in my head, and when I thought about dyeing it myself, I had every day 3 new ideas, which colors. But the days before I did it, there was one special color I really wanted, and then the second came, and the third was a surprise for me.
Right. Can you show us the colors?
Okay, I can do. The first color is that gray. It's a bit with a little bit blue, but the blue you only can see in that light you can see the blue a little bit. It's gray and blue. And the second color, that's what I really, really wanted. It's aubergine. And I Googled how can I dye aubergine, because I don't have the color aubergine. I had to mix it with violet and red. And it's great. Oh, and the color pop, it's really color pop.
I love that. That's so cool. That's gonna be so beautiful.
It's really great. And
you know what? I'm super excited to see your shop. That's gorgeous.
It's really gorgeous.
It
I
just
really
might be like my favorite combination of what I've seen this year. Seriously,
yes,
love it.
It's super fine bamboo from I buy my yarns from Supergarn.com. It's in Germany here, and it's super fine bamboo. It's I have it here. It's 60% merino, 25% viscose from bamboo and 15% polyamide.
Nice.
And I also already crocheted a shawl from this yarn, and it's wonderful.
Well,
Very-
okay, let's go back to like Stephen West, right? How did you discover Stephen West, his designs? Do you remember the first design that you like, oh, I have to knit it?
Well, I don't. It's the first design I wanted to knit was a bachat, but I didn't knit it yet. I will do it one day. And my sister told me 3-4 years ago about him, and she was very excited. And I looked at it, and it was not mine at that time. But last year I began to watch crafting podcasts, and then in September, October, everyone told about Stephen West, Mystery Knit Along, and I saw the first videos from Marty, Knit 365 blog, his Blogtober, and it was really great, and I decided to do it last year. But in the middle of October, I had a surgery on my shoulder. And so I didn't start before that surgery because I didn't know when will I be able to knit.
Right.
And I started the holography when the third clue was out. It was not all mystery for me. I had already seen something. And so the holography was my first Stephen West project. It was the first time I used an English pattern. And nearly the first time I almost used the pattern, because before that I never used pattern.
Did you find his pattern like easy enough to understand? Because like if you don't have any experience with patterns and English patterns, was it easy for you to follow it?
Without his videos, I wouldn't have made it. His videos were very helpful.
Right.
And but since that time, I always knit with English patterns. I like it even more, the English patterns.
Do you think like because of Stephen's use of colors, right? How colorful his shawls are, his love of like all the super bright yarns. Do you think you became a different yarn dyer and a different knitter?
Oh, well, I love it colorful. The more colors, the better. Some people say that Stephen West uses too many colors and they don't like his patterns because of those colors. But stupid, because you can use each color you want and you don't have to use those bright colors and so poppy and so on. But I love it. I really love it. It's great.
Well, since last year, you started the YouTube channel also, right?
Yes, in August.
So are you planning to cover your Mystery Knit Along adventures this year on your channel?
Yes, but I don't think that I would do something like October or so, but I will tell about it in my podcast, surely.
What do you like about my collaboration with Martin? Like, what do you like about the fact that we joining two channels to cover this Mystery Knit Along?
Well, I think it's a great idea for the community. You're both very nice people.
Thank you.
I like to watch you both, and that's great. It's a good idea, and it's very lovely to be a part of it.
Thank you. Was there like some new techniques that you learned with knitting Stephen's shawl?
Oh, it was all new because I before the holography I never knitted I-cord. It was new. I never did brioche, and thanks to Stephen, for me brioche is easy.
Right.
Because I have learned it by his video. And it's easy. I'm not afraid of brioche. I love it. I also dyed yarn for the brioche shoreline shawl.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's alpaca with silk. Merino with alpaca and silk.
Well, why did you decide to start dyeing yarn? Like you were a knitter and you're doing other fiber arts as well, right? It's
Yes.
you do
Oh,
crochet.
I started dyeing my yarns 2 or 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I think, but only for myself, not to sell them. And I love it because it's double happiness when you knit with your own dyed yarn.
How did you learn how to dye yarn? Was it also from watching YouTube?
Yes, I learn everything from YouTube.
We call it YouTube University.
Yes, that's very good. Anything, if you want to learn something new, I'm spinning with hand spindles. I'm spinning my own yarn. I've learned it from YouTube.
Really?
I'm needle felting. I've learned it from YouTube. Everything. If I need a new technique in crochet or knit, I learn it by YouTube.
Well, do you like, if you were to introduce yourself and tell something about yourself to somebody you just meet, do you see yourself as predominantly a knitter, a yarn dyer, a felter, a spinner, or do you just see yourself as a fiber artist of many talents?
Last thing. Well, my YouTube channel is called Steffi Multi-Kreative. And that's I'm creative in everything, in all kinds of crafting, and yes, I'm sewing and everything.
Right.
I have always to do something with my hands.
Do you think like people like Steven inspire creativity in the rest of us?
Yes, yes, he's very inspiring.
Right.
That's the word. He's very inspiring. For me, in the solography, the very special thing was it was kind of thinking out of the box. I have always knitted in one direction, and in the solography, the direction of knitting changes.
Right.
That was mind-blowing for me, really.
Do you have any predictions as to what we can wait for this year as far as techniques?
As everybody says, cables, I think, and I hope brioche.
So you're taking it to the whole different level. You're planting your own garden to dye the yarn to participate in Stephen West Knit Along.
Yes, yes. Well, the dyeing certainly came before that, and I think perhaps we could blame COVID on me going down that big rabbit hole, because I did a lot of knitting when we were in lockdown.
Right.
And yeah, and I got a mystery package from a yarn company of I didn't know what it was going to be. We sort of paid an amount and it arrives, and when I opened it up, it had a whole lot of undyed sock wool, and I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with that? So that was 2 years ago, and then I just started playing. I was like, well, I'll dye this, and I think probably the first things I used were avocado and onion skins, a sort of normal sorts of introduction to that. And then because I've got a horticultural background, I started to do some research into all the dye plants and bought a book. And then probably the spring of 2020, I started ordering dye plants and germinating dye plants. So I've got quite a lot of things now. Woad, goldenrod, madder, and I've just got some indigo that I noticed is just germinating today. So that's very exciting.
Well, I mean, like when I'm like, before I met my first natural dyer, I had this vision that like when you do the natural dyeing, it's very subdued, pale colors, like very pastels sort of thing. But then I realized that it's not true.
No.
And that you can achieve like really bright colors and really vivid colors. What was
Yeah.
your journey like in that respect? Like learning about the intensity of colors and like how much to use, because like every recipe you putting a cup of the marigolds or a cup and a half and it's completely different color. Like
Yes.
what was that journey like for you?
Well, the sort of standard thing people say was to use the weight of fiber so the weight of dye material is the same as the weight of fiber that you put in there. Fresh dye material. But then, of course, you get one color, and if you use half that amount, you'll get perhaps half a strength of color. So if you keep track of, say, counting how many dye flowers, like if it's marigold, and you put 25 per 100 grams, you kind of get to know that you'll get that color, that particular color. And if you want less, you either leave it in the dye pot a shorter amount of time or use less flowers. So yeah, a lot of experimentation in the first year, still experimenting, but less, getting to start to know what colors you'll get from different things and how to do it.
So last year was
yeah.
the first year you tried Westknits with your own hand dyed
Yes.
first, right?
Yes.
Was it difficult for you to choose those colors? Because it's like every time I'm talking to yarn dyers, I feel like they can do everything and anything. So even for, how do you stop from experimenting? Like, how do you decide on that final kit?
Well, I looked at what I had already dyed, and in there I sort of had 4 of the 5 colors that I was reasonably happy with. And then I thought, well, I wasn't 100% sure whether they would really work, because you don't know, it's a mystery. But I liked the look of the colors myself, the sort of the purple and the green and the purple and green and a grey and a sort of a speckled white. And then I wanted to get a green to go with it. And that took a little bit of working out, because I thought I would get a green from using rosemary leaves, and it really didn't come out green. It was sort of a murky brown. And then experimenting, I put marigolds, which are wonderful to have on hand, marigolds in with the mix, and immediately I got more of this sort of a green that I'm wearing. Yeah. And then I thought, yes, that's perfect. That's just what I want. So
how are you approaching it this year?
Well, actually, it's a little bit similar, because I only had a deeper green that I was happy with, and that was marigold over grey wool. And then I thought I would have blue to go with. I thought I would do blue to go with it. And then I did the blue, and then I wasn't happy with how they meld together. I thought, no. I did the pop color, and I used logwood, and I wanted to get quite a deep purple. And that was a 2-day journey, because I didn't use enough, and I didn't boil it for long enough. Then so I did some research, needed to definitely boil it for probably 4 hours before I even put the yarn in. And so I did that one day, and then the next day I put it in, and immediately we get this quite beautiful purple. Within half an hour, and it's like, oh wow, that's amazing, that's perfect. And I was just jumping up and down with joy, because that's the color I wanted. Yeah. And I also put some mohair in, a mohair silk in with the same pot.
Oh,
so I've got that choice to put the mohair in the shawl. Yeah. So this is so that's Corridale. It looks very dark on the screen, actually, probably darker than. Yeah, and this is the mohair silk, which is very beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have purple, green, and what's the third color?
And the third color is a bundle dye I did with 3 3 different dye flowers. So it was Coreopsis Rebecca, which is a black-eyed Susan, and third flower was hollyhock. My assistant. Hollyhock, that's right. So we had a deep hollyhock flowers. They were red Coreopsis flowers. They were all dried from last summer, and the one I just said, the
black-eyed Susan.
Black-eyed Susan. That's it. Yeah. So the black-eyed Susan is interesting because it's got a very black center to it. Which I've got one there. Yeah.
Right. It's like yellow petals and black.
Is it, so you get flecks of yellow from the petals with the contact on the wool. And then you get the black seems to split into blues and greens sometimes.
Oh,
and I think maybe yeah. So you can see that here. So it's quite.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. So you put the flowers right in the wool and steam it all together. So you just get these beautiful splits of.
I really like that, actually.
Yeah,
that's
so,
really pretty.
And the way you get to the same is just to try and put the identical flowers in the identical places, which is, yeah, you have to be a little bit more careful. They're probably not perfectly the same, but they're close enough.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Like each one is a piece of art. Well,
Yes.
what attracts you in Stephen's patterns? Like, why did you decide to try even your first knit along?
Well, probably the challenge, and I'm always up for a bit of a challenge, I suppose, and also that I knew I was going to learn a lot of new techniques. Yeah. So.
Well, how long have you been knitting in general before that?
I learned to knit when I was about 8. My older sister taught me to knit, from a large family. So mum really wasn't a knitter. So but long stretches of not knitting. Probably I started making garments when I was a teenager. But that was before you have working in the round and circular needles and all that. It was, it's all done in pieces.
Right.
And then I knitted for my children and then grandchildren. Yeah. So
I mean,
yes.
like, okay, when you're thinking about lifelong knitting journey, right? And then meeting Stephen West and seeing his designs, do you think he changed you as a knitter?
Oh, I think what it did was extended in my head what is possible for me to do. Yeah, because there was lots of things I'd never done. Yeah.
How does your family, your friends, like people who know you, who had your knitting perhaps in their life like for years, how do they view you now that like you are the coolest person, right? You're on Ravelry, you're on Instagram, you're knitting Stephen West, you're dyeing your own yarn. Like, are people in awe from you?
I hope not. I belong to a spinning and weaving guild in the Wairarapa, and lovely group of ladies, and I think they are a little bit amazed at what I do, because I just started spinning this year, and seemed to take to it really quickly. So
I don't know, you are my hero. Like, I want to be like you. I feel like it's one day you wake up and you decide you're gonna dye your own yarn, you're gonna learn how to spin. Like,
yeah, it does get a little obsessional, probably. My husband would probably say, Oh no, not another rabbit hole.
Well, how did your yarn stash change since you became a dyer?
Well, it's quite large now, and I sell my yarn at local farmers market. Yeah, and I've now got a little website to sell as well. So
We'll
yeah.
share it in the comments so people can
Yeah,
it's
it's also like anybody who starts up a small businesses, there's a lot of challenges, and also there's a lot of other people in New Zealand dyeing wool. Yeah, so
well, what do you expect from this mystery knit along? How do you think Stephen is going to surprise us this year?
well, I think there's cables, because I think it said something in the instructions that you needed a cable needle, so I think definitely cables. And there's only 3 colors instead of 5 from last year, so I'm wondering if it'll be a little bit more, I don't know, it's hard to say with Stephen, we're a little bit more understated, but perhaps that's not what he does.
I don't think
No, I don't think
I can't
so.
imagine
Yeah,
it being understated.
No, I think there'll be a lot of surprises. Yeah, and that maybe we're not quite sure where we're going, and then it'll all come together, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, how did you discover Stephen West for yourself for the first time? Do you remember that first time?
I remember I started knitting in about 2018, and about mid that year, I discovered an Instagram. Didn't have one of my own at that time. I still was lurking as just an observer and a learner. And I saw people talking about this mystery knit along, and it just looked like so much fun. But at that time, I was barely knitting anything. Like I was working on one of my first projects probably. So it definitely didn't seem like something I could ever participate in. And then I think in the October of that year, I decided to start my own Knitstagram, and my skills developed and I felt more confident with my knitting. So the next year when it got announced in the September, I guess, 2019, I was like, oh, will I do it? Won't I do it? Because I was following Stephen the whole way through, and admiring his patterns, but not feeling confident enough to try any of them. And then the color suggestions came up, and I'm like, hang on, 2 colors, I can probably do this. So this was Starflake here, which I see you've got your Starflake there. I'm like, I can do 2 colors. I had some in my stash, and then I just needed to get another color to go with it. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to give this a try. And from that very first clue, I got so sucked in and sucked into the community and enjoyed the process so much that I haven't looked back. And I've trusted him and I've gone with it. And it's going to be year 4 now this year.
Well, you know what I loved about Starflake? It's like when you look at Stephen, when you talk to Stephen, when you hear Stephen talk, it's all like this, like, oh, don't worry. It's like, just do your thing, like dancey little relaxing kind of thing. And then you need Starflake, and the finishes are just so superb. Like there is not anything loose about it. It's like very calculated, very precise, very clean. And I love that. And it's like, the construction of it was really sort of mind-bending, but like the way the instructions are written, you can follow it. Like you just have to read every line and follow every line, and you're golden.
Exactly. And I think that year also there was someone on the Ravelry group who had set up a spreadsheet so you could track your progress on Starflake. And I found that to be so super helpful, because it felt like, for me, every clue felt like a big challenge because it was my first time. I just need to get through this clue, and how much do I have left of this clue to, and I'm this many % through that clue. And that was just so helpful for me in my little analytical brain to feel like I am progressing, I am making progress, we can do this. And breaking it down the way that he did made it so doable. And even with the brioche section, which for me, it was the first time doing any increases or decreases in brioche, which I think for a lot of people, it may have been the first time doing brioche at all. I had done some basic brioche, but never like that. So he just took you through everything so well, and the tutorials just helped me so much. It was amazing. It was such a great experience.
So like, hold on, back up a little bit. How did you actually learn how to knit? Like, how did you go from that first like initial, oh, I learned how to knit the basics, to like get to the point of comfort? Like, did you take classes? Did you do YouTube? Like, how did you learn? YouTube? YouTube University.
Basically. My friend at work introduced me to the idea and the concept of being able to make things out of yarn. And I went along to their craft night, and she gave me some tips on the basic knit stitch, basic purl stitch, and she taught me an English knitting. And I was sort of struggling through that for about 6 months. And then my mum came over one day and said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm knitting. Look at this thing that I'm making." It was a blanket. Bad idea for your first project. And she said, "Oh, you're doing it English style. Why aren't you knitting continental?" Because that's what she had knit when she used to knit when she was younger. Like, but I don't know how. And she's like, "Okay, well, we'll have a look at it later." And that night I got onto YouTube and started looking up tutorials. So I had not looked at tutorials before that. But I thought, okay, what is this continental versus English? What does that even mean? How are there multiple ways to do this thing called knitting? So yeah, my obsession with watching YouTube tutorials and just learning from them sort of started there. I got through maybe 3/4 of this blanket, which was all in garter stitch, and it's not finished yet. It's still not finished. And I got a little bit bored, and I thought, I want to make something little and something that I can feel like I've accomplished something, because I felt like I was never going to finish this blanket, which is true. I still haven't finished it. And so I decided to find a hat pattern. My sister-in-law was pregnant at the time, so I thought, I'll make the baby a hat. But again, new knitter, no idea what I was getting into. I decided on the pattern with a bunch of texture through it and slip stitches and pass stitches over techniques that I have never seen before. But I didn't think that was tricky. I just thought it was knitting. So again, went onto YouTube. How do I do this part? And how do I do that part? Knitting in the round for the first time. Like, it was all new. And what I found with my learning journey in knitting is I never gave myself a chance to think something was hard, because I just tried it. So my very first test knit that I ever signed up for was a brioche wrap. I didn't know what brioche was.
No, but like, I absolutely love that, because like, I was one of the people I interviewed was Julie Knits in Paris, and somehow like we became friends. I tested a bunch of patterns for her. So I remember like she's asking, "Do you want to knit this sweater?" And I was like, "I never knitted the sweater." She's like, "Oh, great, here's the pattern," you know, and that trust and like designer into the tester, I was like mind blown, you know.
Amazing. And that's, I think, the best way to learn is to jump in head first, to be honest, because you don't get a chance to be worried about it. There's plenty of resources out there to figure out how to do something. And if you don't like the way that that's done, well, there's other ways to do it quite often. And I find that's so amazing about knitting, that it just keeps me intrigued. I don't get bored. I don't lose. I don't lose. I've never lost my knitting mojo. I don't quite understand how people lose their knitting mojo, because I feel like I'm this obsessive person who comes home from work, waits for work to be over, waits for dinner to be done, so I can sit down on the couch and knit for the rest of the day.
Oh, so you're in Australia, right? Yes. Team Kit or Team Stash?
Last year I was Team Kit, because it was 5 colors. And it seemed overwhelming to try to match them up myself, because I was watching Martin this morning saying how he struggles to put colors together. He doesn't have that confidence to step out of his comfort zone. And I feel like I'm the same. Like, I will always gravitate to the pinks and the mauves and the grays. And so last year I went kit. My first year I made my own kit. My second year, it was serendipitous. Over the COVID period, I bought a lot of yarn, because what else were we doing apart from knitting and buying yarn? And when the color combination came out, I had things in my kit that worked perfectly together, all from one dyer. slight change in base for a couple of the items, but it just worked. And then last year was overwhelming. So I found a perfect kit through an Australian dyer, Louis and Lola. And then this year I looked at all the kits and I ummed and I ahed and I had no idea. But what I really wanted was to go pink. So I've made up my own, but I'm still not sure about it. And I've ordered more yarn and I may change it up still. So
Do you want to show what you're thinking of right now?
let me get my basket for you. So I went to my local yarn store because I have a lot of stash, but I don't have a lot of two colors together because it's either a sweater quantity or it's a single. Like it's very rare that I buy two. But when I walked out of my yarn store, I walked out with this.
I love that actually. Yeah, that's very pretty.
Colors are very good on here. But then I started playing around with it and I went, there's not enough pink. So I don't know, but there might be a bit of a change and I might end up pairing that with that as the pot maybe.
I like
Options
the
are
yellow. Yeah.
You like the yellow?
I do like the yellow. Like was that when you did your first mystery knit along, right? Or second or third, and this is the fourth one. Like, what do you expect different this year because you're joining Martin and I? Like, how do you think it's going to be different from the previous knit alongs?
I mean, there's a community aspect every year, but I think that evolves. And doing it with you guys on top of the other community that I've already gathered is just going to make it more exciting and more challenging in some ways. Not challenging, maybe challenging is the wrong word. I like the inspiration of seeing how far people progress and how they're doing with theirs, which propels me to keep going. I don't want to get left behind. I want to keep up. So I think doing it with you guys is going to be a lot of fun to keep me motivated that little bit more. Not like I said, I don't have time to lose motivation during the MKAL. That first year, I felt like I was going so slowly that I ended up sort of calculating how long it would take me to get through a clue because analytical brain. And I sort of usually think to myself, if I allocate 20 hours of knitting time in the week, I will get that clue done. And for the first 3 weeks, that's usually true. For the fourth week, that seems to never be true with the big bind offs and the multiple stitch counts and everything else. But yeah, just being able to knit with other people, I think, is the best part of it all, that we get to share that experience together and get to celebrate the things that we accomplish or the challenges we've overcome, and also commiserate on the parts that might be driving us a little bit mad.
Well, I mean, do you have any prediction of like what might wait for us out there in this mystery world?
Yeah, so obviously twists and turns. Cables are sort of insinuated with that cable needle, whether that's, oh my gosh, I don't know what kind of cables. I really can't even think. But I also wonder whether short rows will go into it, which I think Martin talked about as well. I do like short rows, and I think that could be a lot of fun. And I don't think we've seen that in the last 3 years either. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe the construction will be different. So the last 3 years have essentially been almost like a crescent in various sort of functions. So I'm interested to see if this will be a different shape, but I really have no idea. I could never have guessed what would happen last year.
Well, I mean, do you feel like because you've done it 3 years in a row, do you feel like it evolves into something bigger on all sides, like not just the community, but like the design itself, the yarn choices and all of that? Like, do you think it evolves?
Absolutely. I think the techniques are definitely, like last year in particular, it was very much a sampler. We got to try all different techniques throughout that shawl. There was not a single bit of repetition in there, except obviously those two little side wings where we replicated that twice. But there was a new thing to do every single clue that kept you just learning new things, trying new techniques. Like I had never tried the welts before, and that was surprisingly a lot of fun to knit for me. the crisscross stitches I've heard obviously mixed reviews about, and I find they look amazing, but I also probably didn't enjoy knitting that part as much, but I love the way it looks. So it's worth getting through it and persevering. So it's really, really, I'm looking at my shawls here, which is why I keep looking to the side, but it's just amazing to me to think that they're also different. They're also unique, but they're also Westknits.